Hello, everybody, and happy Halloween. There is a creepy tombstone behind me. I don't know if it's in the shot right now, actually, but you might see it later if you don't see it now. That we found a little styrofoam Halloween decoration in the backyard and has now become a half and half decoration for our classes. um, so today, I thought it would be fun to do sort of a greatest hits, that I wanted to call it, of just some images we've used and some stuff that we've done that we like in class. So we came up with three ideas. One is to do a little more footwork. I'm always a fan of footwork and go back to some of that stuff we did a few weeks back, maybe a month back. And then to work with this image that we used a couple months back about the shoelace in the ribs. And then just to kind of flow through some exercises. So that's the plan. So if you weren't here when we talked about the image of the shoelace, or you want a reminder on that, it was an image for helping you feel the ribs come together in the front. So in Pilates, um, we're often trying to engage the upper abdominals, and one of the cues that we use to engage your upper abdominals is the image of the two halves of the ribs coming together, the right half and the left half of the lower rib cage kind of folding in towards each other. And sometimes we use the term knitting the ribs. That's kind of like an age-old image. Like people use that a lot, knitting the ribs. So we'll say that, but that doesn't always make sense to everybody. Like, what does that really mean? So a little while back, we started talking about the idea of a shoestring, right? Like if you were to thread your shoestring and shoelaces through these like lower ribs back and forth, and on your exhale, you just pulled it a little tighter. The ribs would pull together, just like that two sides of the shoe, whatever that is, whatever area of that shoe is. Um, Tongue, it's not the tongue, it's something like that. And so using that image, like you could pull your shoelace together and pull the ribs together a little more tightly. We were working with that as a way to feel the upper abdominals come on, feel the ribs come together, combining that with your exhale and working with that image. So let's start with that. So we'll start on your back, knees bent and feet on the mat. And settle in. I'm always a little fidgety when I first get on the mat. So I give myself a minute to kind of fidget around and then let myself relax into the floor. And so as you start focusing in on your breath, just notice where it tends to move. And then gently start to direct it towards the lower part of your rib cage. And as you direct your inhale towards the lower part of your rib cage, think of the inhale opening up kind of all the way around, right? Like you were loosening the shoestring. And then as you exhale, thinking of letting the ribs tie together, like pulling the shoestring a little tighter, the shoelace a little tighter. Inhale, as you inhale, there's still a little bit of that shoelace feeling going on, right? Like it expands, but it doesn't totally let go. And then as you exhale, it tightens. So as the inhale happens, it's like you're taking the shoe off, it opens up a little. And as the exhale happens, you're putting the shoe on and drawing it in. So taking the breath a little with that. And then hands behind your head. Let's do a little bit of mini crunch with that image. Breathing in. And as you exhale, draw in the shoestring. Bring your head up, look into your belly. Really supporting the weight of your head with your hands. Another breath. A little tighter shoelace brings you a little higher. And lower down with your inhale. 3 more times we'll do the mini crunch. Exhale. Shoelace engaged. That's my superhero. version of the cue. Full breath once you're up. And lower back, down, and going again. So last one of these. We're going to leave it up there this time as you exhale. Pull the shoelace to bring your head up a little more to reach your arms forward for the 100. Let's keep your feet down. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. Breathing in. And draw the ribs in. Inhale. And exhale. 5 more. Last one. And come back down. So a couple things there. One, when I'm really focused here, I really feel that start to burn a lot more. I feel that work a lot harder, all that kind of stuff. So if you notice that happens to you, sometimes it's just like if you really take your attention there and you really are working it, you might start to feel it more intensely. And then the other thing, counterintuitively, if I keep my feet on the floor, sometimes it makes the work harder. It's just a little harder to really isolate like into this place. And this is really, really working without the help of some other stuff in my legs. Like sometimes having the legs up is actually a little easier than keeping the legs down. And that's a little counterintuitive. But that too helped me feel this a little more intensely, a little more deeply. And like this was doing all the work. It was all focused into this part of the body. So if you notice that, that's great, right? It's not necessarily like sometimes people will be like, oh my gosh, I've gotten so much weaker. What happened? And that's not always what's going on. Sometimes you just focus the work in so deeply there. Okay, right leg straight out, left leg comes in. Let's take the leg up into kind of a gentle reach, right? Not super straight. And let's start a little bit with the feet. So I mean, I love feet. So I'm always like looking at my feet and being like, oh, hi there, feet. So look at your toes and like wiggle your toes around a little bit. And I always feel like it's a little like waving. It's like this very sweet image to me, which I know some people don't feel like that about feet, but wave your toes around a little bit. And then pull the toes back and leave them back like they're coming towards your knee. And then after you've done that, start to move the rest of the foot, flexing the foot, really like you could push your heel up. And as you push your heel up towards the ceiling, you might even stretch your leg a little bit more. And then let your heel like release a little, let your knee bend a little, and start to push the ball of the foot. And the ball of the foot like it was going to push a button. Ball of the foot. And then toes. So wiggle the toes, pull them back. Can you just move those? And then start to move the ball of the foot and then start feeling the heel. Really reach up, pushing the heel towards the ceiling. And as you do that, that might stretch your leg, you know, like a 1/4 of an inch straighter. And then reverse it. Ease up on the heel, push through the ball, like the ball of the foot had to push a button on the ceiling, and then toes. And then just work with that awareness a little faster, flexing through the whole foot and pointing through the whole foot. Trying to feel all those parts of the foot. And then bend your knee back down. And then press your thigh into your hands and bring yourself up to sitting. But you didn't think I was going to do that, but that's what I did. So once you're up to sitting, find your foot on the floor, right? And just kind of spread that out and feel how the foot really connects into the floor. Holding the back of your leg, rounding your spine, coming back a little. So the thigh is going to press into your hands, but add in the idea that your foot actually is kind of pushing into the floor, and that's why your thigh is pushing into your hands. And as you start to roll backwards, keep that energy through the foot and through the back of the leg. The foot comes off the floor, but it still has a sense of like trying to reach down towards the floor. That pushes my thigh into my hands. That slows me down so I don't just tip over backwards until I'm all the way back. As you come up, shoelace ribs, foot reaching to the floor, thigh pressing forward, shoelace the ribs a little more, foot presses towards the floor, all the way up, coming back down. Inhale. Exhale, lower you get. Little shoestring ribs is helpful. Helps you bend in that part of your spine a little more. Head comes up, foot reaches, leg presses. Exhale, ribs draw together. Foot keeps finding the floor. Last one, coming down. All the way to your back. Okay, so let's play with the other side. So right leg comes in, you do a little kind of gentle reach up, wave your toes around. Can you just move your toes, right? Like, can you just wiggle your toes? And then pull the toes back towards your knee. And then feel the ball of the foot start to reach back. Start to feel the heel reach up. And as it reaches up, maybe you extend your leg a little more. Okay, just get that really long reach through all of it. And then back off on the heel. Let the knee bend again. Push the ball of the foot like there's a button on the ceiling. And then reach the toes all the way around. Toes pull back. Ball of the foot reaches back. Heel stretches way up. Back off the heel, soften the knee. Ball of the foot pushes way up to the ceiling. Toes wrap around. And then a little more flow to that movement. Sometimes getting things like this to work, if you're not used to it, takes a lot of concentration. And then you start to grip your jaw and tighten your chest and tighten your shoulders. So do a little check-in with that stuff too. You want to do this articulate movement, but you don't want to tighten up in your face or neck or shoulders. You think of that like little kid who sticks the tongue out of the side of their mouth, right? That kind of thing happens to us sometimes. And then bending your knee down, let's find a way up to sitting and start in the up position. Right foot really pressing into the floor. Hands hold the back of the leg, tipping a little backwards. Now, before I go anywhere, I'm going to try to feel that foot in the floor activates the back of my leg and kind of pushes my whole leg down. Shoelace ribs draw together. And then as I go back, I still feel like the foot is trying to find the floor. That sense of energy. My leg is still pushing into my hands. The lower I get, I add in that rib feeling again. Let me get all the way down. Coming up. Here's my hard moment. All three things are important. Ribs, foot, back of the leg. Brings me up. Coming back down. Inhaling. Foot towards the floor, back of the leg. Shoelace ribs. One more time, up and down, or down and up. Resting once you get to the top. Okay, so let's take both feet out. Feet are flexed, and then again, you can kind of still mess around with the toes. Sometimes it's all conflated, right? Toes, everything is on, everything is off, right? Can you flex your foot and your ankle like you did earlier with the heel reaching forward without being like super rigid in your toes? Like, can they still move around? See if you can find that place. So it feels like my whole foot is pressing forward. As my whole foot presses forward, I'm going to round my spine. And just a little bonus movement here. Like, can you slowly roll down and keep pressing your whole foot forward? The lower you get, exhale, shoelace in the ribs, all the way back down until you're on your back. Hands by your side. Leave your left foot really pressing forward. Take the right leg up, knee a little bent. Long toes reach to the ceiling. So it's somewhere in between. I'm not all the way curled over. I'm not fully flexed. I'm thinking like my foot is an arm, right? It's just reaching way up to the ceiling like that. And then like I had little markers, sometimes I imagine little like pencils or markers on the tips of my toes, and they were going to draw a really nice circle on the ceiling. So I'm going to take that and start to draw my circle over to the left and down around, and then back up. Now I don't want to draw on the back wall. I want to draw on the ceiling. So I'm not opening my legs super far, right? I want to keep my circle on the ceiling there. It's not a very wide circle. That smaller circle will be more controlled by my belly, by my abdominals. Ribs tie together in the front with the exhale. Reversing. Same circle. I'm still drawing the same circle on the ceiling. I'm just taking the markers around the other direction. One more. Right leg comes down, both legs together again, right? Now, sometimes when I take my right leg down, my left leg has like drifted off to the left. I've kind of forgotten about it. So it's a good little check. And when I take my right leg down, the legs should be touching again like they were a moment ago. So find that again. Find your foot pressing forward without being super rigid in your toes. Left leg comes up. Left toes, little toe markers reaching towards the ceiling. My knee's a little bent. My shoelace is tied. And I draw my circle on the ceiling. It's probably about the same size as the other circle. Inhale, exhale. 2 more. Same circle, draw it the other way. One more. And bending your knee, take hold of your leg, push your foot towards the floor, ribs tie together. You roll back up to sitting. Okay, so let's take the spine stretch forward. Spine stretch forward, you're sitting, your feet are about the width of your mat, maybe a tiny bit wider than the width of your mat. Again, not crazy toes, loose toes, letting them be, but still reaching the heel forward, right? Not totally relaxed either. So heel way forward, toes wiggleable. Is that a word? Sitting up, super tall on your sits bones. Tie your shoelace, reach your arms. Inhale. Exhale, working through the spine. Head, upper back, ribs tie a little tighter with your shoelace. You get to the bottom, wiggle your toes, but leave the rest of your foot in place. Rolling back up where you started. And exhale. Head, upper back, shoelace ribs. Reaching forward. Heels are reaching forward. Toes can wiggle. Inhaling back up. 3 more. Exhale is the forward. Inhale is the up. Okay, let's do a little side lying work. So I'm going to go into my right side. Right arm way out. My head all the way down. Now this is a really good one to use, that shoelace image, because what happens is the ribs just kind of like sink with gravity towards the floor. And I'm actually not really aligned when I lie on my side, right? I'm kind of like short on the top side, long on the bottom side. So first thing is to make sure my knees are right on top of each other. That levels out my hips a little more. But second thing is to pull that underneath shoestring a little tighter, right? Like this one tends to get a little too loose. So I pull that one a little bit more and I float this lower rib up. Not my armpit, way down here. Pulling that way in, getting those to come on. So I'm going to keep that feeling. Little clamshell. Opening, back down. And you might think, this is a leg exercise. And sort of, it is. But like, you could make it just almost completely about this, pulling this up. This is a lot of work to keep that rib really engaged and lifted. This might be the secondary thing. Once I get those ribs really drawn in, the pelvis really in place, then sure, I can play with like, oh yeah, there's the back of my kind of outer back of the hip coming on. But I want to do this first. This is my first priority. Now we're going to take it up, hold it there, Reach the lower part of the leg out, toes, ball of the foot, heel. Now with this straight leg position, you're going to turn it in. You're going to point your toes down towards the floor and do a little dip of your toe down. And then heel reaching way up. So different muscles in the hip, right? They're a little more on the front part of the outer hip. Trying to keep that in. Now I just let go of my ribs because I was thinking about this other stuff. So I'm going to pull that in again. For me, it's strangely hard to keep my ribs engaged and to keep this toe turned down. Once I pull the ribs on, I want my toe to go up. It's a funny connection. So I just have to think about both those things. One more time, take it up and hold it there, and then just feel it one more time. Can you get the heel up and the toe down? Spiraling the thigh in as the ribs are up. And relaxing all that. One more side. Unless you're an octopus, then you have 7 more sides, which I don't know who first said that joke. It might have been Scott or it might have been some other very corny teacher. It could have been me, but it probably wasn't. I probably wasn't first. So left rib, tie your shoelace on the left rib. Feel that lower part pull up, but don't tighten up your neck to do it. Not your armpit, just that lower part here. Hips are lined up. Knee starts to open. Start kind of small with your knee so that you can really pay attention to this other stuff. This is your foundational piece, right? Make a good foundation first. And then once you feel pretty confident with that foundation, it's all held together, then you can play with, okay, could I go a little farther? And then maybe you feel more of that outside back of the hip. Deeper than your glute muscles is what we're going for. Muscles deeper than your glutes, but in that same area. One more time. So here we are, external rotation. Reach the rest of the leg out. Toe, ball, heel, really reaching. Now internal rotation. Toe points down, heel points up. Not pulling my hip forward, I'm just turning my thigh down and up. Toe down to the floor, heel up to the ceiling. Ribs still lifted. And now it's the more front part of my outer hip. It's still my outer hip, but it's the front part of it. One more. Take it up, hold it there, and then just feel it one more time. Could you turn your thigh in a little more, your heel up a little more? And then rest it. Good. Okay, so I'm going to pass it over to Scott one day before his birthday. His birthday is tomorrow, so wish him a happy birthday.
Hello, everybody. So tempting for me to say good morning, but I know a lot of people watching this asynchronously. So we got the best of elbow, and we're taking a look at feet, shoelace, and then the flow. Pick right. Heard my AirPods make a funny sound, so good to hear. They're all hooked up. So big, deep inhale into your back ribs. And exhale, arms up. And then arms back down. As your arms went up, you feel how your shoelaces blasted forward. So we're going to use shoelaces and not Velcro. So use the exhale to cinch your shoelaces. All right, see if you can keep that connection as you inhale. Cinch your shoelaces with the exhale, arms up. Feel how that opens your upper chest. Arms down again. Let's do that one more time kind of slowly and then put it more into the flow. Exhale, snug up your shoelace. Keep that connection. Inhale. Reinvigorate that connection. Arms up. Let your chin float up. Let your upper chest and throat open up. Then folding forward with the in-breath. And exhale, shoelace. As you reach the crown of your head forward, feel how your upper chest and your throat open up. Inhale, folding, releasing your neck. And that's why I like to come up on the exhale. It's more effective that way to open your upper chest and your throat than if you were to come up with an inhale. So let's continue this idea of flow. Step your feet wide apart. Turn your left foot in and then your right foot out. And then flowing, matching movement to breath. Exhale, ankle bends, hip bends, knee bends. Inhale, coming up. So quality of flow. Movement can have lots of subjective qualities. It can be pointed, staccato, jerky. It can have flow. It can be smooth. It can be fluid. Next time your knee in the bent position, pausing there. Bring your hands then into prayer position and take a moment to let that right foot, let your toes spread out. So a lot of times when we talk about feet, it's what you do with your feet. Sometimes tension accompanies that. So let your toes spread out like candle wax melting on a hot rock. Then with the next exhale, tip your hips. Bring your elbow to knee, your hand on your hip. And for the time being, facing forward, your belly, your chest, your nose. And then similar to what you worked on in the side legs earlier, take your back leg and rotate it internally. Then with that sense of internal spiral, then telescope that leg out of your rib cage. And we'll take a few breaths here. And then inhale, coming up, turning back to the front, and then stepping your feet together. Let's take a few moments. Admittedly, we've done one side, not yet the other side. And tie your shoes. Check to make sure that your shoelaces didn't come untied or loosen up unexpectedly. They keep that connection. As you step your feet apart, as you turn your right foot in and your left foot out. Now I leave it to you to explore what's the quality of movement. So we can exhale, bend, inhale, straighten. And the movement can have any of a number of qualities. So we can practice expressive movement. Maybe it's staccato or languid, smooth, any of a number of descriptors. Movement's really fun that way. Next time that knee in the bent position, pausing there. Bring your hands into the prayer position. A few breaths here. Now with the next exhale, tip your pelvis and let your spine, your neck, and your head follow. Elbow to knee, hand on your hip. So of course we don't want to square the hips. That's what was said a lot in yoga back in the day. Thankfully, I think we're more or less gotten past that instruction. Terribly hard on the hip sockets. But even though we're not squaring the hips, by and large, toward the computer, toward your screen, your belly, your chest, and your nose. And keeping that orientation is you take the back leg, spiral it internally, just like you did on the floor a little bit earlier. And then maintaining that inner spiral is you telescope that leg out of your rib cage. And then ride the next inhale up. Turning back to the front. And then stepping your feet together. So we talked a bit about the right foot, letting your toes flow, letting them relax. Now let's bring that same sensibility to your left foot. Letting those toes flow out of your shins and melt into the floor. All of your toes, not just the big toe, not just the little toe. But what about those three in the middle? Sometimes I have to imagine those three toes because they all kind of collect together into a massive toe nest. And then other days I can like, oh yeah, I feel all 5 toes releasing, settling. Now as you continue that sense of releasing and settling to help engage your belly, very slightly lighten your heels. So it's not that you're coming up on your toes, but the heel's just a little bit lighter. And I just felt my lower belly engage. So in addition to lower belly, upper belly. Exhale, snug up your shoes. Keeping that connection, exhale, arms up. Inhale, folding. Exhale, gorilla. Inhale, folding. Exhale all the way up. Inhale, arms down. Rhythmic movement. Exhale, arms up. Inhale, folding. Exhale, gorilla. Inhale, folding. Exhale all the way up. Inhale, arms down. Continuing this movement. Rhythmic movement, but really any movement, is a wonderful opportunity to observe the mind. So one place the mind will sometimes go with movement is leaving the body. And that can be kind of fun, short-term, kind of blissful, but tends to long-term lead to anxiety because being disconnected from the body is commonly correlated with anxiety. So see if you can make these movements here, even though we've done this movement a few times. And continue to feel your feet on the floor. Continue to feel any of the sensations present in your body. Stay embodied. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale, gorilla. Inhale, folding. Exhale all the way up. Inhale, arms down. And we'll pause here for a few moments. So the paradox is movement can bring us more fully into our bodies and can help spiral us out of our bodies. So following the former path, feet on the floor, toes outflowing, settling, heels just a little bit lighter, lightened. Cinch your shoelaces. So now let's take this flow to the floor. Begin with the inhale. Exhale, arms up. Inhale, folding. Exhale, gorilla. Inhale, stepping back. We're going to take a few breaths here. And then coming down to your knees. So now taking this flow to your spine. Inhale, flex your spine. Perfect pose for Halloween. Then exhale, spine the other direction, extension. Inhale, cat. Exhale, cow. So once again, here we have a rhythmic movement. Now it's not just leaving the body that can occur with movement. Sometimes there can be a dullness. So see if you can maintain the present moment awareness of your body. So for example, the weight distribution in your hands probably shifts from cow to cat. And certainly the feelings in your spine and your torso probably are different, whether you're in cow or cat. So one more like that. Back to normal neutral hands and knees. Turn your toes under. And then lifting your knees and hips. And we'll take a few breaths here in head down dog. And exhale, coming down. And then transitioning to your back. And as you've done a few times already, knees bent, feet flat upon the floor. We're going to start with little movements of your pelvis.
Tipping your pelvis a little bit back to press your lower back to the floor, and then releasing that effort. Posteriorly tilting your pelvis, lower back on the floor, releasing that effort. Couple more. Time being, let your breathing be whatever it is. Posterior tilt could happen on the in-breath, the out-breath, or something in between. Primary focus for the time being, simply the movements. Next time your lower back is imprinted, let's pause there. And feel how what is imprinting your lower back is that posterior pelvic tilt. So maintaining that posterior pelvic tilt, if not increasing it, as you lift your torso up from bottom to top. Now, once your hips are lifted, we'll pause here for a few breaths. Maintaining that posterior tilt as you slowly come down, segment by segment, piece by piece by piece, coming down. And that's been posterior pelvic tilt for quite a while. Let that go for a few moments. So before we do another bridging, remember that talk of the feet. Let your toes release out of your shins. Let your toes settle into the floor. And your heels ever so slightly lightened. So keeping that sense in your feet, posteriorly tilt your pelvis. Keeping that posterior tilt, if not increasing it, as you slowly lift up. So I don't know about you, but I'm feeling two tugs. Feeling a little bit of a tug in my quads. And I'm also feeling a really deep tug deep in my pelvis. That'd be the psoas muscle. And I help release the psoas. Take your outer thighs and flow them away from you. And then we'll take a few more breaths here. And maintaining that posterior tilt as you slowly, slowly lower down. I just felt my toes pick up. That's generally going to be related to tension in the throat and neck. So let's take a few moments here and practice letting your toes settle into the floor rather than tensing in toward your shins. Let your toes comfortably flow away from you. And we'll take a few more breaths here. And then coming up to sitting. So now we're going to work a little bit with the sides of the feet, which you've kind of indirectly been there already. So let's start off with knees bent, feet flat upon the floor. And it could either be your hands catching your knees, or if you're a member in good standing of the long arm club, could be your elbows hooking your knees. So now let's take your right foot and bring it under. And then lightly press the side of that foot into the floor. Little toe side of the foot. Then hands catch that free knee, sitting bones pressed down, head held high. Surveying your room. No cats to be found. So then taking your right hand, either hand catches the knee or elbow head catches knee, and turning to your left. Steady breathing. Then turning back toward the middle. Both feet flat on the floor again. So in my body, that's the easy side. I have a little bit of history with the other knee, relatedly some hip stuff there. And the reason I mention it is that's normal. We don't really expect the two sides to be exactly the same, especially as our bodies are a little bit older. So now let's bring your left leg under. And whether it feels the same as the other side or different than the other side, taking that left foot and pressing the side of the foot to the floor. Heel, especially the little toe side of the foot. The left hand or maybe left elbow comes around, other hand behind. A few breaths here. And then turning back toward the middle. And then taking both feet out in front of you. So a little bit earlier, working with the qualities of the feet. Most of us, when our feet are in this kind of neutral position, the toes are really tense, pulling back toward your chest. And that's going to be a fascia line that goes right into neck and throat, sometimes even into the jaw. So remember how a little bit earlier you worked on, okay, can you keep your foot in this position and let your toes be free? Free the toes. Deep inhale. Exhale, free the toes as they reach up. Inhale, forward. Few breaths here. And exhale, coming up. And then reclining. So we're going to do a little bit of relaxation, and that could be done in a lounge chair. Could be done on the floor, right like I am. Or maybe on your bed or your sofa. Let's take a few moments quietly here to get comfortable. And that may involve getting a pillow or a blanket. Once you've gotten comfortable, if you haven't already, feel free to close your eyes. Sometimes we work with imagery. It's a very powerful way to harness the power of the mind. Sometimes we work differently with the body mind. So invite awareness to your tailbone, way down at the base of your spine. And then from your tailbone, invite awareness to flow up your spine. And almost like you're applying a coat of paint, painting your spine from tailbone upward. Ending up all the way from tailbone to skull with an even coat of paint. So the moving upward is not that we've forgotten what's below. Rather, building upon, expanding that awareness to cover the whole totality of spine. That's the meditation. So no need to visualize anything with your spine. Just simply a sense of your spine. And if your spine feels tingly, energized, noticing those feelings. And if there are parts of your spine that maybe feel a little bit achy or sore, noticing those experiences. Or if you don't really feel much of anything, noticing that experience. We'll take a few more breaths here. If you've closed your eyes, now opening your eyes. And then coming up to sitting. All right, so that's about our half and half for the day. Any comments or questions? I'm seeing a shaking the head no. So super glad we could spend this time together. Each Saturday we offer this freely to the community. So if you enjoy the program, please share it. Let your friends know. Really glad that we could work together, and let's do this again very soon.